Awesome. And I think we are good to go now. So if we are live, people will see us at this very moment. If not, it's all good. But what's up, everybody? How we doing? Welcome to our first live stream here on Suns Digest. I'm your host, Bruce Veliz, with my host, C.J. Pierre. Sorry for starting a little bit late. Had some technical difficulties getting the stream started up, but we got it going. And we're going to be live here discussing some Phoenix Suns news revolving around Team USA and talking also about the team in general, looking at some potential roster moves, some potential um, teams that and lineups that we can run out with this team. And I'm very, very excited to get into this and break this down. CJ, how you doing on this Thursday evening, afternoon?
I'm doing great, man. It's great to finally get this first live going. We just really want to show out all the appreciation that we have for everyone that's been supporting the channel from the get-go. It's been fun. I love talking all this Sun stuff. It's been a crazy off season, even for a team that's in the second apron. You look at the teams that are making moves. The Suns are up there with some of them that are making some of the most moves, and that's crazy to think when a team that's so cap strapped that the Suns have been able to really remake this roster, really dive into the fact that they want to be a win now team. There's going to be a lot of changes, new coach, new rotations, a couple of new players, some rookies that we didn't expect. It's just been a fun off season, man. I'm excited to break it down with all you guys that are joining us tonight.
Exactly, and I'm pumped to break it down with you, CJ. I know that we've talked about it, we've done a bunch of videos, but I feel like the live stream brings a little bit more extra out of us. Allows us to kind of be a little bit more laid back, be a little bit more casual, have some fun with the fans, and like we said, these are going to become a weekly thing. We're going to be having these streams on Wednesday evening, Wednesday nights, regardless if it's a duo stream or one of us together. We will be having these to provide for you guys to give you guys that extra content and that extra, Sun's little tidbits of information and stuff to go over. And obviously, if you guys have any questions, if you want anything answered about the Phoenix Suns, even if it is kind of off topic, not even talking about one of the two topics we bring up tonight, you can obviously ask those questions down below, and CJ and I will pin them up to the here. We will break them down for you guys. But CJ, what do you want to get into first? You want to talk some Team USA basketball? You want to get into some of that today?
You know what? That's kind of really the thing that's kind of going on right now. So yeah, let's talk about how Team USA is doing, and let's check in on our Suns playing over in Paris. Let's start there.
Awesome. Yeah, no. So obviously, as you guys know, there are two Suns that are over in Paris. We have Devin Booker and Kevin Durant, and both players, have made some impacts so far in both of these contests. We saw versus Serbia, Devin Booker start in both of these games, but saw him playing that, small ball kind of three guard position, a little bit in that junior position, and maybe that's something we can look forward to in first and kind of discuss with this Suns team, in for this season. But I think he did pretty solid there, gave some really, really good stats. And then when we look at in the game versus South Sudan here, CJ, we can see that Devin Booker led the Team USA in assists in that game, generating and creating as much playability for his other superstars. He was the only starter with a positive plus minus at a plus minus of a total of 9, and he had the highest field goal percentage by any starter in that lineup. Now, obviously, we know that Team USA is stacked. It has a bunch of players, a bunch of pieces, but this screams perfect for me because Devin Booker is a player that I've known and we've seen be able to get in his bag and be able to play. But I feel like his two discrepancies from fans outside of Phoenix are his defense and a little bit of his playmaking. And we can see with Team USA, he's already succeeding in that. So, what are your kind of implications on that and leading into the season as well?
I think this is going to be a big summer for D Book. I think kind of playing this role on Team USA, I think really he has the opportunity to really show just how great of a player he truly is. The fact that he is starting on this team, this is a loaded team. Like there's, star players, MVP candidates all over the place. And D Book is one of the few guys that are probably going to potentially start in every game in these Olympics. Like Jason Tatum didn't even play in that first game, and then he got the start in the game against South Sudan. But D Book's been out there. He played the most minutes in the first game. He's going to be out there. He's one of the guys that can really do a lot of multiple things. He can shoot. He can facilitate a little bit. He's good at attacking the basket. He's really almost perfectly suited for the Olympic style of basketball. And then he also gets a chance to really show what he can do when he locks in on the defensive end. I think, yeah, like you mentioned, a lot of people kind of get on him in terms of like what he does defensively and the effort that he gives. I mean, I've always looked at D-Book as a really solid defender, being able to really match up against some of these really high-level perimeter players. And I think he just gets a chance to really show that in these Olympics. Like, obviously, like, when you're looking at, the play when you're playing against Serbia and you're playing against South Sudan, obviously not everyone on the court is, potential NBA All-Star like you're seeing in with Team USA. But that being said, these are guys that still know how to put the ball in the hoop. South Sudan's a really solid offensive team, and D-Book held his own on the defensive end in that game as well. Generating steals, getting in passing lanes as well, creating turnovers, creating other opportunities for the Team USA to get in the fast break. And I think D-Book also shown, his ability to facilitate, and set up other guys, be unselfish. I think that's kind of been a knock on him too. People looking at him as potentially a selfish player, and I just think D-Book just gets a chance to show the world that that's not who he is. He's not a selfish guy. The last time he played in the Olympics, he came right off of playing in the NBA Finals, like barely had any time to work out with the team. He just basically played in the finals, lost in the finals, and like still gonna go play for my country. So I mean, D-Book is a character guy. It's someone that as Phoenix Suns fans we love, and we love that he wants to stay in Phoenix and finish his career in Phoenix. And he just gets to show the world the kind of player that he is. And I think this particular year he's going to have a big opportunity to take what happens with the Olympics and push them forward into a season that the Suns have a lot of high expectations for.
Yeah, I completely agree, CJ. Seeing Devin Booker come out here and play with these type of lineups, like you said, and be able to succeed with all these other star players from Team USA. He's playing along the likes of, LeBron James, Stephen Curry, Anthony Davis, Joel Embiid, and he's in that starting lineup consistently, proving. And I know that there's been a lot of question marks. I kind of brought this up in my Team USA discussion video couple of days ago of Devin Booker being, the best shooting guard in the league at this point. There's been people saying possibly Jaylen Brown, Donovan Mitchell, maybe even Anthony Edwards with his rise, but Devin Booker starting in this Team USA lineup and showing not that he can just score at an efficient level like he did in Game 1, making 4 of his 5 3-pointers, and then in Game 2 getting the most assists, having the best field goal percentage of the starters, having the best plus minus. That just goes and show you that he can just play on both sides of the ball. And I think that Devin Booker has been severely underrated throughout his career. In the beginning of his career, when he played out in Phoenix at the start, everybody looked down on Phoenix because there was nobody there. When he was dropping, 81 and was doing fantastic things, there were no other players that were really around him. And then once he went to the bubble, they had that, little win streak. Players like CP3 were like, all right, let's go there. And they may have rushed the rebuild a little too much to then generate some wins and then had to, kind of take some steps back, rearrange the lineup to get a real core to push with this Suns squad. But Devin Booker has been, underrated, then by some mass media, maybe overrated, and then now back to underrated, I think, because people sleep on his defense, like you mentioned. People sleep on his playmaking. And people like us who watch Suns content and watch Devin Booker play, we obviously know he's effective at both of those. But for the mass media, like you mentioned, the whole world to see, I think it's absolutely fantastic to have the world now kind of recognize Devin Booker because I think last season with Ants rising and Donovan Mitchell doing good in the playoffs and the Suns kind of taking a step back, a lot of people wrote off Devin Booker as one of the best shooting guards in the league.
Yeah, I mean, for me, like, unless you're gonna like try and classify Luka Doncic as a shooting guard,
Yeah.
in some cases, I think it's clear that D Book is the number one shooting guard in the league, followed closely by Jaylen Brown and then Anthony Edwards. In my opinion, I think those are kind of the top three shooting guards in the game right now. Even Jaylen Brown, I mean, he primarily plays, the three technically in
Yeah.
the Boston's lineup, but I think he translates more to a two guard in most situations. But I think, Devin Booker, Jaylen Brown, Anthony Edwards, that those are the three for me, followed closely by Donovan Mitchell. But I think when you take a look in terms of what D-Book can do and the versatility that he provides, not just, his tenacity, his want to, his go get it. He's got that Mamba mentality, Kobe Bryant being his favorite player. I mean, he shows it every single night that he's on the floor. He's had some struggles. We all look back in Game 7 against the Dallas Mavericks. He even had some quiet outings in the playoffs against the Minnesota Timberwolves as well. But even when it was a do or die situation and they were down 3-0 against Minnesota, he showed up in Game 4 and he really gave the Suns an opportunity to win that game, even though it didn't end up working out for him and Anthony Edwards ended up sealing the deal. I think D Book is still in my opinion, the number one two guard in the league. Now, Anthony Edwards is coming, and he's coming fast. But I think D Book has an opportunity to really cement himself this upcoming season. I think he's ready for it.
No, I think so too, and I think he's ready to take that calling and be one of those top guys. I think he's been one of those top guys, been a little bit disrespected, like you mentioned. Ant's on that rise, but at this very moment, with this Team USA performance, I think it's clear to say that Devin Booker is the best shooting guard, and we're hoping that this can translate obviously to the Suns roster this season as well with this core. Now, before we get into Kevin Durant and kind of discussing his Olympic stuff, I want to get into some of the chats and kind of discuss what people are saying in here. So I want to give some shout outs to MJ for saying, yo, what's up, MJ? How we doing? I want to answer Lenny18K's question. But what do you guys think about Beal coming off the bench?
Ooh. You want to take that one?
Yeah,
I
I'll
can
go.
go. I can go in on it. I've seen some guys in some other videos talking about Beal and what they want his role to be now with the addition of Tyus Jones specifically. Personally, in my opinion, if you wanted to put Bradley Beal on the bench, I don't think you're doing it. Okay. The guy's making $50 million this upcoming season. You don't put $50 million in the 6 man role. You just don't do it. That's not how the NBA works. Mike Budenholzer, I think he is the coach that is going to be able to really take this lineup and maximize its potential. And I think that you can do that with Beal in the starting lineup, with Booker, with Durant, with Nurkic, and potentially Tyus Jones. Even if they wanted to do start off with Grayson Allen in the starting lineup and just run that same starting five back, I really do think Mike Budenholzer is the guy to really unlock what these guys can do together. He's a smart coach. He's an innovative coach. He's able to like think up on the fly, really good in terms of with his substitutions and his lineup changes, particularly when it comes to like players who maybe don't have it on a particular night. So I think having Bradley Beal in the starting lineup is still the best option for the Suns team. I'm someone who's like you put the best players on the court and you figure it out from there. And I think that's what Mike Budenholzer is going to do.
I agree. So my kind of stance is like you said, a $50 million player, you don't bring him off the bench. Now I think with the new CBA and kind of how we're seeing things, I think that some teams in the future will make this decision, but I don't believe that the Phoenix Suns are that team to make the decision. The only way that I could see Bradley Beal seemingly coming off the bench in a case is if he were to go down with an injury and the Phoenix Suns were to either A, succeed and have a very good starting lineup with him out, and to ease him back, they brought him in a bench role and kept him on that bench role, or B, if they had a terrible first start of the season and they needed some sort of readjustment to their lineup. But ultimately, I agree. I think that Budenholzer is going to bring the best out of it, and we've even seemingly see where's that Serbia team where they had Drew Holiday, Steph Curry, and Devin Booker out on for Team USA. That's a similar role that with Tyus Jones being that Drew Holiday type of guard and Bradley Beal maybe not being as effective as a scorer as Steph Curry. He's going to be one of those, effective scorers, not the greatest on defense. I think that Devin Booker seemingly plays that similar role regardless. And if we've seen him work with Team USA, I think it could work out with this Suns roster.
Yeah, no doubt. I think Bradley Beal, I think a lot of people were just a little disappointed in terms of what his impact was. I think a lot of it had to do with injuries and him not really having a chance to really develop that full chemistry with Durant and KD. But I think if everyone's able to stay healthy over the course of the summer, go into the season with some positive momentum, going from training camp and getting a chance to really play together, get to learn Mike Budenholzer's system, I think Bradley Beal has a chance to really have a good bounce back year.
I think so too, and I think that's something that Suns fans need to keep their eyes on as well. Some more comments before we get into the next topic. Chuckster saying that he didn't think that you guys had live shows. This should definitely draw more fans to the channel. Yes, Chuckster, these are new weekly live shows that we are debuting this week. So if you guys want to make sure you stay up to date, stay tuned into all of the Suns content like this, the additive stuff, the kind of stuff we'll break down some more stuff in detail, kind of get your guys' opinion and stuff. Make sure to turn into the weekly shows because that is something that's going to start being a staple. Chuckster saying that Booker is probably the third best shooter on the Olympic team. KD, Curry, then Booker with Edwards and Tatum. I would say that's a very, very good stat list from what we've seen so far. Tatum hasn't had the greatest shooting in the Olympics, but I do think he is one of the better shooters on the team. But I do like that list.
Look, I love KD as much as the next guy, okay? But I'm never putting him on a shooter list ahead of Steph Curry. That's just not something I'm
well,
willing to
well,
do. But I just like, to each their own. Okay, to each their own.
at this
I just
moment right
remember.
now, at this moment right now,
And
Curry
look.
didn't have the
Hey,
greatest game too.
uh, you guys remember the shot that he hit against OKC? Okay, look, that is That's the greatest shot I've ever seen. All right. So as long as Curry has that in his back pocket, for me, best shooter. He's in. Someone's gonna have to do a lot to take that from him, in my opinion.
Awesome. And Preston with Budenholzer, our offense should explode this season. I think so too. I think that we're going to see a development with our offense this year, and I think that was, the kind of missing focal point with this Suns roster. It felt like they were a little bit too stagnant with their big three. It wasn't generating as much offense, and now we're seeing that, especially with Tyus Jones being added, with players like Grayson Allen and Royce O'Neal being brought back for their shooting ability. I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic, and I'm excited to see what Budenholzer can bring, specially to this lineup. Suplex City also saying, yo, what's up, Suplex City? But CJ, let's get back into the topics at hand. Let's kind of dive into more stuff. If you guys have more questions, more comments, want to speak anything in the chat, just drop it down below. Let's get into the next part, talking about Team USA, and that's breaking down Kevin Durant. Now, obviously, Kevin Durant in game one had a fantastic performance, put up 23 points on light out shooting, and Devin Booker and Kevin Durant only missed 2 combined shots in game one, which is absolutely crazy to see. But then when you think about it, when you talk about it, when you get closer to it, in game two, Durant did have a good shooting night, but didn't get as many opportunities as some Suns fans, I believe, would have liked. Only got 5 opportunities, was 100% from the 3 point line, 2 rebounds, 3 assists, but 3 steals as well, with 14 total points. Now, like Chuckster was saying, Durant, he thinks, is the best shooter on this Team USA squad. CJ, what are your kind of opinions and thoughts on um our guy Kevin Durant and how he has performed with this team so far?
I mean, for a guy who didn't play in any of the exhibition games, like you gotta admit, like he's doing really well for a guy who's supposedly rusty right now. But he came in that first game and he was on fire. He hit his first shot and he only missed one whole game. Like, I mean, it's Kevin Durant. I mean, he's one of the most versatile players in NBA history. He's someone who can fit into any system, ideally really can probably fit into any era. He's such a good um offensive force that I think he just has the ability to really provide a lot of impact on this Team USA team. He's the number one Olympian at this point for USA basketball. He's just a great, great, great player, and I think that having him a part of this roster is just good. And I think he's, doing well for himself. I mean, that game against South Sudan, I mean, really, it was really the Bam Adebayo game, if you really think about it. I mean, he was just kind of dominating inside with the bench unit and really just kind of everybody ate. Tyrese Halliburton was shooting Jays, Derek White was making shots. Um, LeBron James was doing his thing. So they didn't really need KD to do a whole lot in that South Sudan game. I think it's more on the lines of when you look at this roster. I mean, it's just so loaded. Any guy can, go and get a shot and really have an impact. And come to think of it, Joel Embiid didn't even play in that game. So it's just like you have to just it's a just a there's so much talent. It's an embarrassment of riches. So when you look at it and you just say, hey, didn't really look like KD did that much. Well, he's playing with, 11 other all-star caliber players, including Derek White, who I think, has a chance to be considered an all-star. I'm not sleeping on Derek White. I know a lot of people are like, really, Derek White? Derek White's a good, good role player and a potential. He has a. I guarantee you that Derek White will make an all-star team at some point in time in his career. Mark my words, he will be named an all-star at some point. That's how good he is defensively, and that's how good of a role player I think he is. And role players make all-star teams. Okay, Wally Zerbiak was named an all-star. Look it up. But now getting back into KD, he's playing well. All right, it's the Olympics. It's only a second game, playing like fully with the squad. He looked good in practice. He looked good in that first game. He's getting his legs under him. They have one more in group play coming up here, and then they'll get into the knockout rounds where I think he'll probably be more of a focal point when it's going to be one and done games. So I'd say look for KD to pick it up even more as we go along. But you can't ask for too much, for a guy who didn't play in any exhibition games because of injury.
Exactly. That's I think the craziest part, like you mentioned, the fact that he didn't play in any exhibition games and came out and dropped 23 points like immediately, was one of the focal points for that offense, and was, especially coming off the bench as well, just automatically keeps it going and bringing it still off the bench with this squad. And I think if he didn't have that injury in exhibition, he would be in this starting lineup already. And I think that would just be even crazier to have him alongside LeBron, possibly Anthony Davis, and Curry or Booker or whatever kind of lineup you want to run, maybe a Drew Holiday or whatever kind of Steve Kerr lineup he wants to run. But you mentioned some great things. Game two was, like I said, like you said, a Bam Adebayo game, very very heavily prioritized. Booker had his shots. Devin Booker had his shine light. Derek White also, like you mentioned, had his little limelight. And I think that a lot of fans around the world are going to realize how impactful Derek White is, because his numbers last season were of the guy that can be on an all-star team and be a guy that is an all-star. It's just that his namesake wasn't that high. And I think that a lot of people also question his fit with Team USA. What was he going to bring? But him and Drew Holiday bring that, playmaking, that defensive pressure, that thing that those stars like, not that they lack, but the fact that they don't need to apply that fully 100%. Guys like LeBron and Durant can just focus on offense. Anthony Davis, Bam Adebayo, they can focus just on seemingly offense and just seemingly get it going. It just makes it so much easier for those players, and just Derek White and Drew Holiday already know those roles, playing with the Celtics as well, so it just fits in fantastically. I want to apologize for the little technical difficulties that we had while we were going, but trying to get these comments back up, because Preston says that he really likes the comments coming up on the stream, thinks it's a really cool idea, and I wanted to get it back up for him, so I was getting that back up.
Good. Okay, it's our first stream, okay.
Yes,
So bear
first
with us.
first
We'll
first stream.
you know get the check us out there. But yeah, just when you take a talk of like the fit of the players on this U.S. team, obviously it's Team USA. They're probably going to have the best team going out there. But I really think that Steve Kerr and everybody else with Team USA did a really good job of crafting this roster, even before the addition of Derek White, even with Kawhi Leonard. I think that there was a vision in place in terms of what this roster was going to be able to do. They're really versatile. They can change the lineups, on the fly with different matchups depending on who they're playing. They played a little bit bigger when they were going against Serbia, obviously, because they got Joker and, going there. And then when they played South Sudan, it's more of a perimeter style game, a lot more wings, so that, he made sure that he played all of his guards. Tyrese Halliburton didn't play in that first game. He played in the second game, had an impact. You saw, a lot of run from D Book and Derek White and Holiday, and I think it's really great. Another thing too that I think actually is interesting to note, I think Kevin Durant, and this is going to sound maybe a little strange, I think he kind of fits this team coming off the bench. And that's it's crazy because I'm talking about Kevin Durant, but being the Phoenix Suns aspect of it here, I think he kind of fits in terms of what they're trying to do. In terms of what they're doing as the game flows. The starting lineup that they used was D Book, Steph Curry, LeBron James, Jason Tatum, and Anthony Davis in this last game. The first game, it was Book, Curry, Holiday, LeBron, Embiid. So you have to like really think, and then Kevin Durant comes off the bench in all those occasions. Then you have a microwave scorer coming off the bench immediately, alongside a firecracker in Anthony Edwards. I feel like a lineup that features KD, Anthony Edwards, Bam Adebayo, there's a little bit more spacing on the floor in those situations. Think that's kind of more where KD fits, and more that's where the offensive flow fits. When you have like Curry and LeBron and Embiid and/or Davis, the paint's going to get a little clogged, with LeBron and AD, but you still have, the perimeter shooting that you need in Chef Curry. And then obviously you have a defender like Holiday or D Book. I think for KD, not necessarily he doesn't fit with those players because I think he fits anywhere, but I think he becomes the focal point with that second unit. And I think that is kind of, more suited where the ball's going to find his hands way more frequently when he's on the floor with guys like Edwards, with, guys coming off the bench like Tyrese Halliburton. I think he's going to find a lot more success offensively playing with that second unit, Bam Adebayo as well, Derek White. And I think that is kind of where he fits best. So I actually wouldn't be shocked to see him continue to come off the bench over the course of the rest of these Olympics. Now he's KD; he could obviously find himself in the starting lineup easy, but I think he fits in well coming off the bench. I think it's a great plan for Steve Kerr. I mean, Steve Kerr is one of the best coaches we've ever seen, and just in terms of figuring out what to do and what lineups to put out there, I mean, he's one of the best to ever do it. So
No,
the fact that
yeah.
he's got this right doesn't surprise me.
I agree, and I think you bring a valid point. I saw that the same basically talk as well, where LeBron and Kevin Durant, I think, kind of play that similar role for Team USA. So having them in the same starting lineup, yeah, it will help out. But like you mentioned, having Kevin Durant being that extra spark plug off the bench offensively, that extra go guy to go out and get it, and playing alongside Anthony Edwards, who views him as a star player, and playing alongside those other playmakers and defenders like Derek White and Bam Adebayo really allows him to take that focal point of being like, all right, me and Ant are going to be the two offensive go-getters here for this unit. We're going to go out and we're going to take control. And like you said, Steve Kerr has done these lineups basically 5 on, 5 off. We've seen some integration here and there, but it's basically one set and one set. And that's what he said he's going to be playing these lineups with. So I think if he's going to do something like that, Durant being on that second unit is the best thing for his success because he can take over and be that upper echelon top guy for that unit and really take over with this Team USA team. So if they do go in a slump or they do run up against a team that does have some depth in the, single elimination games, Kevin Durant and Anthony Edwards can be those guys to really take over and give them that it factor off the bench.
Yeah, I think if we're just looking Olympic wise in terms of their competition, I think they're the toughest test that they'll end up having to face will probably be Team Canada. I think they're the only team that I really think has the the horses really to even potentially compete with Team USA. I know there's still like teams like Spain and Germany's not bad either. And Serbia is good too. Like, yeah, don't like they have the best player in the world on their team, so you can't like just take Serbia for granted as well just because USA beat them. But I don't think they're really gonna be tested until they play Team Canada, which will most likely be in the gold medal game. If things shake out as most people expect, Team Canada could run into a team that might knock them off, and upset them. I don't see that with Team USA. I think they're going to run through group play pretty easily. I thought Serbia was going to be their toughest test. And then obviously, South Sudan, posed a little bit of a threat. They're a much better team than people gave them credit for. So, and I think that they kept it close early on. South Sudan did as well. I think it was not necessarily the easiest blowout game until it got into the third quarter really. But I think Team USA is going to be set themselves up for some success. I think the only thing that some people are a little worried about or would be worried about is which seed they get in the knockout round. If you don't know this, Olympic seeding is there's group play, and then the top seeds from each group then get the first three seeds, and then they organize it based on point differential in your games. So that's the only maybe worry is that maybe USA will not get the number one seed. They might get the number two seed, and they might have a tougher test leading up into the gold medal game. But I think they're aware of that. They everyone knows the Olympic rules, and they know that their next game they're going to have to put it on their next opponent to make sure that they get that top seed in the knockout round.
Nah, that's cool. I did know that the point differential did affect, how it worked, but I did not know that it was like that close. That is something, good to kind of recognize because that's something that these players are going to have to take into account. We saw that at the end of the South Sudan game when Anthony Edwards, started scoring a little bit towards the end of the game just to make sure that that lead kept going there and kept going up. Now, versus Puerto Rico, I think they are the weakest team out of the three that they're going to have to face. So I now that they've already kind of clinched their quarterfinals a bit already, I do expect them to still go out there for that point differential, but we might see a little bit of a step back on the intensity. But Serbia, South Sudan were even though they're both good competitors. Don't get me wrong. It's just that the Team USA squad is so stacked, and it's just tough.
Yeah,
But
if you
South Sudan
yeah.
gave them a good competition and exhibition. They did make it close, like you said, until the third, fourth quarter. That's when it kind of got away out of hand. And Serbia was back and forth, as well until it got out of hand late.
I mean, when you look at the Serbia game, all you got to do is look at Jokic's
Yeah.
plus minus, and you'll understand
Hmm.
where that game got away from Serbia. All right, okay, that game is when Jokic is on the floor, that game is basically an even game. So it's not like Team USA is going to just cakewalk over everybody. They're the world's gotten a lot closer, and it's the depth of Team USA that really puts them over the top compared to the other countries. When it comes to Puerto Rico, I expect, yeah, Team USA will probably let up off the gas just a little bit, maybe towards the end of the game. I believe that they're gonna try and like do everything they can, full court press, really, go after it early and often, particularly in that first half, to try and widen that lead as much as possible. But these, like I said, these players know the rules. They understand how important point differential is. Fans probably got their, if they're not familiar with Olympic play, you get your taste of it with the NBA Cup games, because point differential mattered a lot in terms of who ended up making it into the finals of that. So obviously, the in season tournament is, just the newest thing that the NBA is trying to do. That's where point differential mattered there too. So that's probably something to take into consideration if you're thinking about why it matters, or why it seems like the game's gotten away from teams and they're still running offense and still jacking up shots. It's because point differential matters in the Olympics.
Hmm. And I think that this USA team, like you mentioned, has that depth. I think that having guys like Derek White and Drew Holiday definitely bolster that and make it, a little bit more dynamic for this squad. Having those all scores, having these all players has made this team just, unstoppable. The fact that, Tyrese Halliburton, Jason Tatum, Joel Embiid are getting DMPs, and those are the type of players that are getting DMPs, it's kind of crazy when you think about it. You know what I mean? It's sad that some of them can't play every single game. I'm in the kind of crowd where if you're beating them by 20, might as well give them a couple minutes, throw them out there for 4 or 5 minutes. I know it might disrupt the rhythm, but Steve Kerr said I'm only playing 10 guys, but played 11 in the second game, so like I don't really know, but
Yeah, it's coaching. Yeah, yeah, he
yeah,
can't give all of the secrets. I
yeah.
think the biggest thing, particularly for Suns fans, to bring it back to our guys D Book and KD. KD, this is what he does. He is the most prolific Olympic player and basketball player in history. So this is what he does. He's going to be solid and he'll be ready going up the upcoming season. I think D Book and his impact on this team, it's really going to do wonders for him. Yes, it's not potentially his first Olympic medal. Like, he was there a few years ago in Tokyo, but I think this is really an opportunity. The fact that he's in the starting lineup with guys like Curry, with guys like LeBron, who were not there during Book's first Olympic run. I think that it's going to do wonders for him leading into the upcoming season, and really, having a more of an opportunity to be a facilitator, which is probably going to be really important for the Suns and end of game scenarios this upcoming season, is Booker's ability to be a playmaker in Mike Budenholzer's offense. I think this will be go a long way into helping the Suns have a successful season. I always think it's great for players when they go play Olympic basketball. I think it really just helps them see the game through a different lens, and they're able to bring it back to the NBA game.
I agree, and like you said, it just gives them a different role, a different type of aspect to play basketball, and a different way to appreciate it. And I think that is specifically good for this Suns team going into this season, because kind of translating into what we want to talk about next is this Suns team from last year going into it had a high expectation, and then the outcome, maybe due to some injuries, due to a weak playoff performance, maybe Minnesota, expecting to be a little bit better than Suns fans thought going into the series, and when it finished as well. You know,
Coaching.
coaching, it's just been an overall just kind of disappointment. So going into this season, a lot of Suns fans are looking for change, looking for additions, looking for ways that this team could improve to bring us back to the days where with CP and Aiton we were in the finals, and just a couple seasons ago where we were close to getting to the conference finals. And now with these younger teams getting better, it's feeling like it's getting further and further away. But I think this year with these USA additions and learnings, and with this team's additions, we're going to be getting better. So with Devin Booker, we've obviously seen him playing that small ball three kind of at some points, playing that two guard position, and we've already heard with Tyus Jones being acclimated to this Suns roster that he's going to be a starting point guard. That's the reason he was brought here. So that raises the question: Beal going to be in the lineup? Allen going to be in the lineup? Booker going to be in the lineup? What are we doing? We're running the three guard lineup. I think the translation from Team USA is that he's going to learn some things playing that small ball three and translate to help the Team US to the Suns. And Booker obviously and obviously Durant, excuse me, having this fantastic offensive season. I just want to translate some stuff of that to the Suns as well. Is that how you kind of feeling? Is there anything else you want to add to that?
I mean, yeah, no, I mean, it's if Booker having the experience of doing the small ball three and Olympic play is definitely going to be beneficial for him. Obviously, NBA is gearing smaller now. Kevin Durant came into the league as a three. He's basically a four now. Uh, so now with the traditional shooting guard is now the traditional small forward in many scenarios. So I think Devin Booker, having this experience is going to be good for him. He's going to be kind of, a point forward, if you will, for the Suns. He's going to have the ball in his hands still, a lot. Even with Tyus Jones on the court, Devin Booker will have the ball in his hands a lot and will have a lot of decision making on his hands. He's going to be the engine of this team. Like, that's going to be the case no matter what. Okay, if the Suns are going to go as far as Devin Booker is able to take them, I know a lot of people think KD is the best player, and you can still think that. I believe that as well. But KD's not really the focal point. He's a star player, and he's going to be one of the primary scorers. But in terms of like the usage rate, if you look at those advanced stats, that the Devin Booker is going to have a high usage rate with this Suns team.
I think so too. And like you mentioned, he is the focal point. He's been this star that they've wanted to build this team around, this team that they've wanted to have to build up and get ready to go. And they finally have it now, obviously, and they've been working with it. But now with this, point guard kind of setting him up. Tyus Jones has already said when he comes out here, he knows that Booker and Beal had to play the one last year and they had some discrepancies with turnovers. He wants to be able to get them going. He wants to be able to find them. Similar to Kevin Durant. Kevin Durant felt uncomfortable in Frank Vogel's offense. But now with Mike Budenholzer, hopefully that can open him up and make him a better scorer and a better player as well on both sides of the ball. Tyus Jones being acclimated, you're saying that Devin Booker is going to get this increased usage rate, which I think he's still going to have, and I think he's going to have a high usage rate. Do you think Tyus Jones being acclimated to this team and bringing that makes that a better thing and raises it up due to the fact that he's going to be looking for Booker to find him those opportunities?
Absolutely. Again, once we started this podcast, first thing, I let you know. Okay, I said point guard, point guard, point guard. It was the biggest thing that this Suns team was missing over the course of the playoffs and the regular season. It was glaring how much they like. I can't just stress it enough, and just how often the offense just was stagnant, no movement. And this is in the playoffs, like the most important time of the year, and you're running plays in the fourth quarter where Devin Booker's holding on to the ball at the top of the key and nobody's moving. That's not how you run an offense in the NBA, especially in today's game. And having a point guard who is primary goal is to set up the other guys, to make sure that his guys are in positions to succeed. I think it's definitely what this team needs and what they're going to be able to have to be successful. I think that when you look at Tyus Jones having that primary point guard ability, he's going to be able to work well with D Book. I think he's going to work well with KD. And honestly, even take a step further, this is probably the biggest deal for Yusuf Nurkic and his ability to be successful on the offensive end. Nurkic just really struggled in the pick and roll when he was running it with Beal and Booker, guys who are just not as comfortable in that setting running that kind of offense. Whereas Tyus Jones, being a natural point guard, it's going to be a lot easier for him. Also, I mentioned in that previous video that I did, Nurkic working on his jump shot, slimming down a little bit, looking to step out in the perimeter, maybe do some pick and pop. Hey, that's going to work out well. So I think the Tyus Jones addition is an A+ get for this Phoenix Suns team. It's going to open up avenues for guys like Booker and Beal and Durant. I mean, Durant's going to be fine no matter what. I think most of the focus is going to be on how this impacts Beal and Booker specifically. Ball less in their hands. We'll probably see a lot less usage for Bradley Beal. I would say that, not saying he's going to just turn into a spot up shooter in this offense, but I think he's going to have a lot less ball handling skills and just more like like more opportunities where in terms of where he's going to find himself, they're going to try and find mismatches for him on the perimeter where he can go ISO and attack the basket. Devin Booker with Tyus Jones, I would see a lot of, two-man game, a lot of switching action, dribble handoff situations. And I think that will be great for Devin Booker because there'll be a lot more movement on the court. I don't think Devin Booker really is successful when the ball just gets sticky and he kind of just finds himself, with the shot clock winding down and he has to just, go get a bucket, with a guy manned up on him. I think he's better suited when, the action's a little broken and there's a little bit movement and there's more flow and your eyes are going in all these different directions and he's able to make a decision there. Get into the mid range and attack from there. And I think having just Tyus Jones be on the floor because he's also a good shooter is going to be great for D Book. And like I said, Kevin Durant, he's going to be fine no matter what. He's lock him in for 25 per game. And I think this is very beneficial for D Book. Great for Nurkic. Bradley Beal's going to have to adjust his game a little bit, but I think Mike Budenholzer will be able to figure it out.
I agree. I think you brought up some valid points there, CJ. I think one of the main points that you kind of struck on and kind of hindered was obviously the fact that Devin Booker is not going to be as stagnant with this offense alongside Bradley Beal being that playmaker. Just kind of no one moving, just kind of standing there, maybe having to take some forced last second shot clock opportunities or just some bad shots due to the fact that nobody's moving around. We're just not getting an open opportunity. I think Tyus Jones' goal is just to do that. He's going to come in and be that playmaker, that setter up guy, that guy that is just known to plug and play and just find those guys. And you mentioned Booker as well. I think you brought it up perfectly. He is the best when he is attacking, can move, give the ball up when he's going. I think he is also the best when he can get comfortably to that mid range with the ball in his hands to maybe say, all right, I want to step back and take a jump shot and kind of get comfortable in my shot, or maybe I want to go to the basket and take it a little bit quicker on those bigs. Nurkic being into that pick and roll, like you mentioned, is huge. And I know in that video that you did as well, talking about his shooting, you mentioned him kind of turning into that Brook Lopez kind of role. And I think that Budenholzer is trying to bring things from his, tenures with the Hawks and with the Bucks, seeing some of those players shine in those similar scenarios. And I think he sees that with some of these players with this Suns core and really wants to integrate them and kind of maybe not build back his old teams, but kind of turn some of his players into players that he can use and utilize. Because I think that was one of the problems with Frank Vogel in the coaching staff, is that the players that were presented to Frank Vogel weren't fit in tune for Frank Vogel's system, and they just said, "Here, Frank Vogel, this is your staff. Rearrange it and put it into your system," and those players didn't mesh well. I think with Mike Budenholzer, it fits better for the offense. It fits better for the team. It fits better for the direction that the Suns want to go. Because Ishbia, James Jones, they want to win these games. They want to be talented. And to win these games, you have to have a talented offense. You have to be a top tier offense. You have to be able to do that. And we didn't see that with this big three last year. So regardless if it was injuries, regardless if it was coaching staff, I think adding Budenholzer and adding Tyus Jones were the two biggest additions for this Suns squad.
Yeah, absolutely. When you think about Mike Budenholzer and what his coaching style is going to look like in terms of the Suns, obviously he was very successful in Milwaukee, winning a championship against us, the Phoenix Suns. Suns fans, sorry, it's
Yeah.
I hate bringing it up, but that's where Mike Budenholzer got his ring. It was against us, and obviously he did that with Giannis, so it was kind of a different setup. There's no Giannis on this team,
Yeah.
so it's going to look a little different. I would probably more so point to what he was able to do in Atlanta. And, yes, like there's the Brook Lopez version of a stretch five, but I think you can look at Nurkic and really try and correlate to what kind of a player Al Horford was when he was in Atlanta. And that's probably, I think, would be more of an apt comparison. Brook Lopez is a really stout defender and one of the better defending bigs in the league. That's
Yeah.
not Nurkic. That's not really his game. But what Al Horford was able to do was he was able to, you know, take his game and really excel in an offense and help create opportunities for other players based on where his positioning was on the court, how he operated in pick and roll scenarios, and just making sure that he was in the best positions to help his teammates succeed. And that's why he was such a big reason why the Atlanta Hawks had such a good run with Mike Budenholzer as their coach, and that's why the Boston Celtics brought him in, because and she's kind of become a staple now on that team. And I think that's kind of more so what Nurkic will look like in that aspect. And then when you look at, Tyus Jones, he's not necessarily exactly like a true Holiday, but he can be more kind of similar to what Jeff Teague was
Yep.
when he was in Atlanta. If you guys remember Jeff Teague, I know he's, kind of killing it in the podcast game right now, but he was a really solid NBA point guard as well. And I think that's kind of more so the version that you would get with Tyus Jones, a guy who's a really good facilitator, can knock down open shots, and is really going to be able to put his teammates in good position. So yeah, I totally agree with you. Tyus Jones, Mike Budenholzer are the top additions on this team. What Nurkic ends up, developing and how he fits in is going to be important because that's really going to leave everything else up to the big three. What they're able to do. Kevin Durant's going to be Durant. Book's going to be Book. Beal's going to have to make some adjustments. And then adding Tyus Jones will be important as well. I think the other thing that adding Tyus Jones does is gives the Suns depth. And that is something that they did not have last season. They just did not have the horses to really go after it. Moving Grayson Allen to the bench and him having, stepping into the Eric Gordon role, being the sixth man on this team, I think is perfect. It's exactly the kind of lineup that I was hoping that they would run out there. You have a backup point guard in Monte Morris. You have an upgrade in the backup big with Mason Plumlee in that addition. And then you've got the rookies that are going to be developed. Also Iguodala, Ryan Dunn. Those guys are going to develop, have opportunities in the G League and also probably in garbage time situations where they can develop and potentially have an impact down the line. You still got Royce O'Neal. You still got the potential from Bol Bol. I think it's going to be probably the deepest Suns team that they've had since their run to the NBA Finals.
I agree, and I think you brought up some valid points. First one I want to kind of talk about is obviously talking about like Yusuf Nurkic and kind of going on that. I think that that's kind of the biggest question mark for the Phoenix Suns this season is how Nurkic is going to kind of facilitate and work himself into this team because this Suns team didn't want that dominating big when they got rid of dominating kind of, but they didn't want that kind of star big. They felt that they could do it with just a above average big, and not that
I saw
Yusuf
what you
Nurkic.
did there, Bruce. I saw what you did there.
But not that Yusuf Nurkic is like a awful big, but he's an average big. You know what I mean? And I think if he can kind of translate that and work on his game and kind of maybe it was Frank Vogel's system, maybe in Budenholzer's system he's just going to look a little bit better and plays better to his game, and I think that that's going to help. But going into the next part, I think the best part that you brought about was the other additions, the other depth that the Suns added, because I think when you look at this team at the beginning of last year to this year, it's a complete 180. Once they traded for Bradley Beal, they were strapped into that hell where they had to only sign veteran minimum guys. They got guys like Drew Eubanks, Shemes Metu, Yuta Watanabe, who were guys that were solid role players, guys who could play in the NBA, but weren't going to be those big impact players off the bench. And they cashed 5 of those in for Royce O'Neal, which was huge. You know what I mean? Another addition that they brought in. And then this season they went out and got Mason Plumlee, who was a fantastic backup big man. They went out and got Monte Morris, who has one of the best assist to turnover ratios in the NBA and was one of the best backup point guards on the Denver Nuggets before he had some, injury riddled seasons and, has kind of slowed down a little bit. But I think he can have a bounce back year this year as well. They also, re signed Josh Okogie, re signed a player in Damian Lee, brought back Bol Bol. They, like you said, they drafted Ryan Dunn. They drafted Oso Iguodala, and they have Grayson Allen for that Eric Gordon role now off the bench. And I think that that brings so much versatility and extra shooting for this team that it is so helpful to have this depth for this Phoenix Suns team. And just looking at it from last year or even last year's trade deadline to now, it's just you have to give it an A for how restrictive everything was with this team.
Yeah, that's the thing you have to look at it. Like, is it are they like sexy, like getting Monte Morris and getting Mason Plumlee, even Tyus Jones to a degree? Are they like, the big flashy moves? No, but they're the exact moves that this team needed to make given the situation that they're in. They're just so hamstrung by the second apron and but the benefit that I guess that kind of turned up is that every team's kind of hamstrung by this second apron and trying to avoid the second apron. And teams that are in the first apron don't want to get into the second apron. And teams that are above the cap don't want to get into the first apron. So that's why you have a guy like Tyus Jones who probably should be getting somewhere like $15 million a year, to be a starting point guard in this league, signs to a veteran minimum. He's only going to be making $3.5 million to be the starting point guard for the Phoenix Suns. And hopefully he can, end up parlaying that into a bigger money extension next season. But then you just had guys, sitting in free agency. Spencer Dinwiddie didn't sign until really late. DeMar DeRozan, we were wondering what was going to happen with him, and it just kind of turned into a situation where it's just like teams just didn't have the money to give to these guys that deserve it, and then Tyus Jones ends up falling into the Suns' lap. I remember we talked about his addition potentially just because like he'd be the perfect fit, but there's no way that the Suns are going to get him because they can't afford him. I remember just us talking about it like that, and then lo and behold, free agency goes by, and then all of a sudden there's Tyus Jones just kind of sitting there like the guy at homecoming dance without anybody to dance with, and then he just fall like all of a sudden there and here come the Suns like we'll dance with you, Tyus, and hey, like it's just working out. It's honestly, it's I couldn't be happier. I'm just so excited to see what they end up looking like under Mike Budenholzer. I think it's just I I haven't been excited for a Phoenix Suns this excited for a Phoenix Suns season in a long time. I think they really have an opportunity to really do something special here, and then maybe you can talk about that. We can talk about in a little bit how they might stack up against some of these other teams in the West.
For sure, for sure. Yeah. I think, like you mentioned, you brought up some great points. I'm very, very excited for this team as well. Like you mentioned, last year going into it, I was excited, but the Bradley Beal addition, I'm not going to lie to you, I kind of figured it wasn't going to work out the greatest. But going into this season with all these new changes, I'm very excited. Like you mentioned, Tyus Jones was a player that we thought was both the perfect fit, the perfect addition for the Phoenix Suns. But we knew with his contract situation, it probably wasn't going to happen. Luckily, with the second apron, and thank you C.J. McCollum, thank you Grant Williams, thank you VPs of the NBA PA, because you guys helped us out. You guys are the ones that graced us, helped us out. We're able to land this Tyus Jones, and even though it will be only for one season, because Tyus Jones next year will look to bounce back and kind of get off of this contract. I think this helps the Suns in general to kind of just boost them up in the standings this year, give them another chance, and just prove to Kevin Durant, Bradley Beal, Devin Booker that they want to win with this team. Because going into this season after that disappointing first round, there are a lot of questions. A lot of people speculating rumors. Oh, Kevin Durant's gonna go to Houston. Oh, Kevin Durant's gonna get traded. Devin Booker's gonna go to New York. Yada yada yada. And Matt Ishbia came out and said, "We're not moving any of these big three. We're keeping them." They got the pieces around the big three to help them. They solved the assist to turnover ratio by getting two of the best guards with it. They solved the backup big man position, and then they're running with it. They added the shooting back. Let's see how they do it. Let's see how they bring it to us.
Bruce, I don't want to pat ourselves on the back a little too much here, but they did everything we wanted.
No, they
They
legitimately did.
they got a starting point guard. They got a backup point guard. They got a new backup big. They got added scoring on the bench. They had to do it a different way in a situation where they moved Grayson Allen to the bench,
Yep.
and then they didn't. They kept their draft picks, their
Exactly.
draft pick, and turned it into and drafted young players to be a part of this team for the foreseeable future. James Jones and Matt Ishbia did literally every single thing that we on this podcast asked them to do. So they're just going to get a round of applause, standing ovation from us here at Suns Digest because these Phoenix Suns fans here are happy. We are satisfied. We understand the difficulties that the second apron brought, and they figured it out. I don't know if it was I can't remember his name's escaping me, but the guy they brought in from the Brooklyn Nets, the cap guy that they brought
Oh,
in to the front
um,
office. But
uh,
like I said, his name's escaping me, but maybe he was the one who came up with all these different things and was like, "Hey guys, just wait out the Tyus Jones thing. Okay, we're gonna be able to make that work." Doing things like re-signing a Kobe, to an extension, re-signing Damian Lee, letting Eric Gordon go, letting Drew Eubanks go. Like every single move makes sense now. Even keeping Nasir Little at this point now makes sense based on the addition that they made, trading David Roddy. It all seems to tie together. They set themselves up to make moves at the trade deadline if they need to as well. I can't say enough. Given the situation, if you just look at the moves on the surface, it's probably maybe a B minus level off season. But given the situation, given how what they were up against, it's an A. It has to be an A. You could with the Tyus Jones edition, I want to make it an A plus. With you factor in Tyus Jones and Mike Budenholzer, but I just couldn't be happier with what this team did in the offseason, given what they were, just faced with. And they took advantage of every opportunity more so than I think any other team that's in the second apron.
I agree, and like you mentioned, CJ, from somebody who was in my car reacting to Bradley Beal getting traded to the Suns on TikTok, screaming, "Why is James Jones doing this? And what is going on with the Phoenix Suns?" I have completely changed my mind. I give him the best praise with him. And Matt Ishbia. I can't find out who the guy that they brought into the front office. I was looking through our old videos trying to find his name. I could not find it. We will report that. We'll get that back to you guys because that is someone we
If you
wanted.
got the name, throw it in the chat.
Yes,
We'll
yes,
make sure we give them a shout out next
yes.
time out.
Exactly, exactly. But they made the smart front office decisions. They made the decisions that are going to make them competent, make them a top team, and I'm excited. You know what I mean? They kept their draft picks. You brought up the fact that Nazir Little now has some room to possibly play in this lineup, get some off the bench minutes, and then again, if it still doesn't work out, it's another tradable contract that you have with some experience getting off the bench on a winning team to say, all right, maybe he's not the best, but he could help out a team like the Bulls who are looking to tank, or a team like that, and you could get a piece back or a draft pick back or even just cap space back to pick up a free agent or a buyout option or whatever. That the flexibility will just help out the Phoenix Suns. And I think, like you mentioned, I'm very excited. I think we're going into a great direction. Before we get off with the stream, I do want to go over the two things that we mentioned. So I do want to talk about some opposing teams quickly over here in the next couple minutes, and then we do have one question in here from Chuckster that I would like to get to. Let's get to Chuckster's question first here. He says he hopes that it opens up some minutes for a Bulls game. Now, we didn't really go much into rotations as much as we would like to here in this episode, but we can obviously have more streams and more stuff to debate and talk. But with Bol Bol kind of plays that power forward center slash role. There are some guys that are in that role, like Kevin Durant plays the 3-4. Royce O'Neal plays the 3-4. Okudaro might play the 4-5. Nurkic plays the 5. Plumlee plays the 5. There are some tweener guys around there. What are your kind of expectations for Bol Bol this season? Kind of some early predictions. Do you think he's going to get some time in the lineup? Do you think he's going to be a guy that's riding the bench? What are your kind of thoughts, CJ?
I It's hard. Okay. So like, as a Suns fan, we've all got, some Bol Bol fever down here in Phoenix. When he steps on the court, fans just feel the energy that he plays with. I really want him to get opportunities and want him to get minutes. I think he could really be a valuable asset for this team if he's given the opportunity to blossom. I think that was the issue last year with Frank Vogel. It's just he just never got consistent opportunities. And I think that could potentially change with Mike Budenholzer, depending on what Bol looks like in training camp. Think right now, the idea is probably that he's not going to see a lot of time. I think most of those minutes might go to someone like Josh Okogie, and Okogie's probably going to see more lineup. Like my perfect scenario would be you have Tyus Jones, Booker, Beal, Durant, Nurkic starting five, with the primary bench unit being Morris, O'Neal, Bol, Plumlee, and Grayson Allen. But I think what is probably going to happen more likely is that it's going to be like kind of a mixture of Morris, Allen, Okogie getting some of those guard minutes with Royce O'Neal and Mason Plumlee kind of occupying the front court. That's what I think is going to happen. That's kind of the what I am predicting to see. But I would love for Bol Bol to go in there in training camp. It's really going to be that's where he's going to have his opportunity. Training camp, preseason games, they're going to be really big for Bol Bol to really step out and shine and show that he's not just all potential. He's not just all hype. He's got the talent and he's got the ability to really show through. I think it's going to be a fight for that kind of that 10th spot in terms of minutes. I think it's going to be a fight between Josh Okogie, Bol Bol, Oso Ighodaro, and Ryan Dunn. Personally, as far as like who's going to get that last little chunk of minutes, whether it's like 8 to 10 minutes per game during the regular season, to really shine. I like Bol Bol's game. I think he's actually a better shooter than I think a lot of people give him credit for. He's a better defender than a lot of people give him credit for. I think where he struggles is just he has mental lapses at times, and he's like is out of position, particularly in defensive situations where he needs to be a help defender or a primary help defender. In offense, he can get a little like, if the ball's not necessarily coming his way, he kind of fades into the background a little bit, and he's not necessarily super aggressive, particularly like when it comes to getting offensive rebounds, where I think that's probably where he could be the most beneficial to the Suns. But in terms of, he's got a decent handle for the guy his size. He's not terrible, in terms of one-on-one defense, particularly on the perimeter, can struggle a little bit in the post against bigger guys, obviously. But he's actually also a good shot blocker too. Like he's just got so many like different talents and skills that I think my Budenholzer should look at and just be like, oh, this is exactly what I want. It's what I want Giannis's brother to be. But I think that like Bol Bol has the opportunity to really kind of shine, and if he's given the opportunity in training camp and he's able to translate that in the preseason, he can win himself minutes. So I like Bol Bol. I want to see more of him, and I think Mike Budenholzer will give him every opportunity to show that.
Yeah, I agree, CJ. I think Okogie is going to get the minutes over him. I think that he's going to be competing with those younger players like Dunn and like Iguodaro for that rotation spot, and it really ultimately comes down what we see in training camp. But like you mentioned, he's a guy that has untapped potential. A guy who's been treated around the league multiple times. Fell in the draft boards on draft day. A player who never really, I believe, has been able to gift his opportunity. And I think a lot of players, a lot of fans around the league, a lot of media people believe in Bol Bol. They see that he has this progression, that he can translate into a solid player in the NBA if given the opportunity, and hopefully that is with this Suns team. Now, I think that if we see some injuries, which we're not hoping for, I think he can integrate himself a little bit more into the lineup. But ultimately, I want to see him be able to prove it. You know what I mean? Because we're at the point where he's been in the league for a long time, hasn't been able to give that opportunity. He might be falling out of the league at this point. Now, the Suns obviously did bring him back, so they do believe in him. They do see that potential in him. It's not like he was just already on the roster, but for them bringing him back and believing in him, I think that's going to give us a little bit of a taste of what we'll see from him.
Yeah, I think it's just gonna really all like you said, just come all down to what happens, in training camp and during the preseason and in
Yeah,
terms of what happens. Obviously if there's injury situations, which we're not hoping for, but like let's be
exactly.
real, like, the big three is not playing 82 games. It's just kind of, let's just,
It's
tell it like it
expected.
is. Like he's going to see the court, he's gonna have opportunities. Suns fans are gonna be able to rise to their feet, when he comes off the bench. They're going to have plenty of chances to see him play. It's just really, can he seize those opportunities, and will he be given legitimate opportunities where he like consistent opportunities is probably a better word. Will he be given consistent opportunities to have a chance? And I think Mike Budenholzer will give him. I think he'll give him every chance to earn playing time with this team. It just going to be whether or not Bobo is able to seize on that opportunity.
Yeah, I agree. I think that Budenholzer will believe in him, will give him the opportunity. And then if it doesn't work, maybe he gets traded or maybe it goes a different direction. But I do believe that they'll give him that way. One
Yeah,
last
I think
question.
that's it too. That's it too. Before you get into that last
Yep.
question, like Suns, because of what they did in this offseason, they have so many guys that are potential trade chips now at the trade deadline.
Hmm.
Um, Josh Okogie potentially, Nasir Little, Bol Bol if he's able to show some stuff. Technically, Grayson Allen could be someone that
Yep.
they may look to move. Um, in the offseason, depending on how the season goes and how he fits into everything they're doing. I think that's probably the least likely. I would expect Grayson Allen to be on the team all year.
Same.
But they just have so many more options because of the depth that they were able to acquire on this team that they did not have last year.
Exactly. And I think that's what also helps them against some of these teams in the West Conference as well when we get down to the playoffs, when we get into those physical matchups, which we saw them lacking this year as well. Now, the last question from Win Lose It, it's Ant. Kind of a little bit more on Nazir Little. Do you think Nazir Little will get traded for a power forward? We did discuss this a little bit. I don't necessarily think that he'll get. I don't know what he'd necessarily get moved for. Like I was thinking more of a guard, and then they were gonna move off his contract if they kept Roddy. But it looks like they did that with Roddy. Um, I don't know if EJ Liddell is kind of a tell. Maybe they want a defensive blocking kind of like tweener younger guy. But like, what would if they were to trade Nazir Little at this moment or throughout the season? What do you think is the possible replacement that could be for him?
Uh, some form of a future draft pick.
Okay, so you just want future
I
capital.
don't want to like I don't want to like just boil it down to simple things like that. But if it's you're thinking because they're a second neighbor team, it's got to be Nasir Little um for somebody else straight up. Okay, like
Yeah,
no one's trading multiple players for Nasir Little. No offense to the guy, but like it's just teams aren't going to be aggregating players to get Nasir Little unless it's like a for cap reasons. And also the Suns basically have a full roster. Things would have to change pretty
yeah,
drastically for us to see something like that. I think if Nasir Little gets moved, it's going to be like a money thing. Moving off of his contract to a team that's willing to take it, and potentially get some future draft capital back. It sounds like Matt Ishbia and James Jones are a little bit more. Um, concerned about, draft picks than they were letting on over leading into the NBA draft. It seems like they're not just like F them picks. They're like, "Yeah, we need some picks." And I think that would be the more thing that I would expect with Nasir Little. Probably not necessarily a player for player situation when they bring back another guy who's going to factor into the rotation. If he's the one that gets moved, I would probably say if Nasir Little is involved in some kind of trade, it would be for future assets, money, saving move, that towards that type of situation.
Yeah, I mean, I could see them possibly like one of the players I looked at was Javon Carter. That was one of the players that I really liked, but now obviously with the addition of Tyus Jones, I don't really see that happening. And it's tough. I mean, Nazir Little's making around $6 million with the second apron. You have to trade for a player that's lower than that. So I think the route that you're saying, even if it is draft capital with a player attached, even if it's a balloon-esque type of contract, or even a player that could still be valuable, I could see that kind of happening. But yeah, we'll have to wait and see kind of on the direction that happens. And I don't think that that's like a foregone conclusion now with the fact that they've freed up that spot, obviously, with moving off of David Roddy. I think that Nazir Little has more room to grow with this team and compared to last year as well. Even though there was some veteran minimums and stuff, I still think this with this construction it's his best opportunity to get a shot. And I know that we didn't really mention him in our starting or bench rotations, but I still think depending on matchups, depending on nights, he will be gifted that opportunity to kind of be presented with that.
Yeah, I think he's gonna have an opportunity to do some things. He'll be on the preseason roster. He'll be there
Yep.
with the team in training camp. He'll probably see some minutes in garbage time. Like I say, honestly, like the moves that they made, getting off of David Roddy and bringing in Tyus Jones, were like the best things that could have
Yeah.
happened for Nasir Little because there's gonna be a space for him on this team. There's now officially a spot for him on this team as a reserve wing, which was not there before they made those particular moves. So,
Hmm. And maybe it was easier to
good.
trade a guy. Maybe it was easier to trade a guy like David Roddy, especially because he played good in the summer league. He looked like he could present something to a team like Atlanta, who got EJ Liddell, and the second comings of the Dejounte Murray trade being an additional add-on. So it's not like they really valued EJ Liddell, or it wasn't a coveted piece for them to go and kind of go after. So maybe helping that, maybe by moving that was a realization, or maybe the Suns tried to move off a guy Nick Little, it wasn't be able to get done. Maybe they have to include some draft capital, so they said, all right, let's move a guy in David Roddy. He's a little bit cheaper and give that opportunity for Nazir Little. Regardless of the fact, I'm just happy that we'll be able to see that opportunity presented for Nazir Little and presented for all these players on the Suns. Because I think even when you look down the list of guys like Don and Iguodaro, Bol Bol, Nazir Little, Damian Lee, those guys are still presenting opportunities and they could still make impacts on this team. Being when you hear, the 11th to 15th guys, you don't really think, like guys that are going to make severe impacts or guys that can contribute. But with this Suns team, because they are so heavily stacked at that with their top three, they can have so much depth added on that your 10th guy on this team could realistically be like their 15th guy, excuse me, on this team could be a 10th guy on some other roster.
Yeah, I think that's the thing to point at is they were able to make so many moves to extend the depth of this team. Where last year, Damian Lee was fighting for rotational minutes, and now, he may not get rotational minutes. He's more just guy who's probably going to play in terms of injuries
Yep.
concerns. By adding the young players that they did, Ryan Dunn, also Iguodaro, they also have the opportunity to really develop. They're not going to be like pressed into playing right away with this team. They're going to have an opportunity to slow roll themselves, and they could end up becoming major contributing factors towards the end of the season. I got my eye on Oso Ighodaro. That's probably another topic that we think. I loved his game in summer league as well. So I think when you take a look at what the Suns roster and what our expectations are going to be this upcoming season, I think they really have a chance to contend. I think they're going to be right up there with teams like OKC and Minnesota and Denver. Those are kind of really the top three in the West when you look at it right now. As well as Dallas as well. You can't sleep on them. They just made the NBA Finals in the Western Conference, so I don't want to sleep on them. So that's the top four, really, right? And where do the Suns fit in that mix? I think the Suns are going to be able to compete with any of those teams. Obviously, I think the Nuggets, Timberwolves, and Thunder will give them the most problems just based on how those teams are constructed. more so than the Dallas Mavericks. I think the Suns actually match up really well with Dallas, just based on the rosters and the lineups. I'm interested to see what Dallas looks like with Klay Thompson. That might I'll have to see that to kind of see what that turns into. But I think the Suns have the opportunity, and I'm saying that like the Suns may be the fifth best team in the Western Conference, right? The West is loaded. There are so many teams. If the Suns were in the East, I would say they'd probably be the second to third best team in the Eastern Conference. Easy, like no questions asked. Like I just that's how I feel. But the West is so stacked. Like there are probably legitimately like seven teams in the West that are they're gonna go into training camp and say, we can win the championship this year. Like that's wild to me that you can have that. And there are seven teams that can say that and mean it, and then there are probably about 10 teams that are just gonna say it. like period. Like that's how loaded the West is.
Exactly, and I think that like I think you brought up some valid points. One, talking back about to the rookies with Ryan Dunn and Iguodala, I think that they have those guys maybe in that 12-13 role is great as well because they can kind of develop, kind of learn from those players. But also with the Valley Suns edition, if they want to move them down and have them get some extra reps and get some extra additive time, they can, and maybe by the end of the season they are blossoming, going up. Also, the two-way players and Gillespie and Jalen Bridges. I know a lot of fans are very high on those type of players. They're very interested in those type of players. So maybe if the Suns move off in his year little contract, one of those guys can move up from a two-way spot and kind of get one of those contracts, and that could be something interesting as well. I'm just very excited with this Suns team. You mentioned some teams in the Western Conference that are going to be, a top, and I agree with you. I think that if the Suns were in the Eastern Conference, they'd be a three. I think 3-4, maybe not 2-3, but 2-3-4 for sure in the Eastern Conference. I think right now at this point they'd be up there. With the Western Conference, it's just so stacked. The top five teams you mentioned, I think the Suns right now are at that five with those four. But matching up with Dallas Mavericks, I think those top three teams are better defensively. I think the Suns can edge out the Mavericks with their matchups and stuff like that. Going up against obviously Oklahoma City Thunder, they have some some issues with, not issues, but just not being in this type of scenario all the time, having those younger players, guys like Kevin Durant and stuff can obviously notice that and kind of go up against, attack those guys. The Nuggets and the Timberwolves definitely would be tough with those big man lineups, especially with the Suns running a little bit smaller ball. But I think that they would be very interesting as well.
Just to point this out, okay, right? Okay, this is where I would have the Suns in the East. Okay, so they got Boston number one.
Yep.
I've got New York number two, and then I have Phoenix number three. I'm not putting Philly ahead of them
Neither am I.
until I like see them do something.
I can't put Philly
So that,
in front of them due to the fact that I can't see Embiid and Paul George being healthy at the end of the season.
right, it's never happened before. So I can't like justify saying that Philly would be is a better team than Phoenix, even
So
if Phoenix was
I'll give them three. I'll give them three. I'll give them three
yeah.
in the East as well. But CJ,
All right.
is there anything else that you would like to cover and break down on our first weekly live stream?
I just want to shout out all of our subscribers, all y'all who have just watching our videos. Really, like we can't do any of this without you guys, so we just really appreciate you guys just showing us some love, commenting whether or not you guys agree with what we're saying or disagree with what we're saying. Like I just love anything that you guys are giving us feedback. Like we love the support in any sort of way. We're doing this. We're just some Suns fans just trying to get our opinions out there and just have some fun, talk a little basketball. And I just want to give a shout out to all of our supporters, all of our subscribers, everyone that's watching our videos. Hi mom. All that stuff, man. It's just a good time talking basketball. I love talking about the game and just chatting with you, man. It's awesome. So it's just a fun time, and it's going to be a fun time just getting into the season. I want to get there. Like I want to I want the tip off like now. Like right. Like it's just like I want to see what this team looks like. Like I want to see what the lineups are. I want to see how Tyus Jones fits into what Budenholzer wants to do. And really giving his first opportunity to truly be like the starting point guard of an NBA championship caliber team. Like he was the starter in Washington, but it was Washington, and they
Yeah.
were led by Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma. So like that's not really the elements. Look at what he gets. He goes from Jordan Poole and Kyle Kuzma to Kevin Durant and Devin Booker. Like no shade on Kyle Kuzma and Jordan Poole, but I think even they would say like, hey, that's an upgrade. So it just I'm just excited, man. It's gonna be a fun ride. And I think Suns fans should be excited. I know there's, you want to slow the train down a little bit, like let's calm down. But look, this is a win now team. Like this is a championship potential championship winning team. They have to put it all together at the end of the day. It's going to be on the coaching staff. It's going to be on the players to get it done. And I think that they have an opportunity to do it. I'm not like booking it. I'm not making no guarantees. Again, if they're technically the fourth or fifth best team in the Western Conference, they could easily get eliminated in the first round again. That's totally a possibility. And That's something that while it would be disappointing, can't say it would be surprising because of how loaded the West is from top to bottom. But either way, I think they're going to be a competitive team. They're going to give every team that they play a run for their money. I think they have an opportunity to beat any team in the NBA, maybe outside of Boston, who I think is the best team in the NBA. I think this is going to be a fun ride. And if they're able to stay healthy, really think they have a chance to do something special.
I agree, CJ. I don't think you could put it better in any other words, saying thank you guys for our support and just showing just how much you guys really do care. Like we mentioned, CJ and I would not be able to bring this great content, be able to have this great support if it wasn't without you guys, tuning in every day, leaving those likes, hitting that subscribe button, coming into these weekly live streams. Like you guys are what is gives this motor to keep going and lets us allow us to produce content to have these fans. So without you guys, we are nothing. So thank you guys really and truly. And CJ, I think this is like you said, it's gonna be fun. I know that we started the channel kind of towards the end of last season, so this year we're kind of getting the full season, the full ready ramp up, ready to go, which I think is a little bit more exciting, makes it more fun for us getting to cover the full offseason, get really, really bought into it, really believe in this Suns team, and kind of project that and bring that to the Suns fans in getting into the season. So, guys, like we said, these weekly live streams are going to be happening every single Thursday at 6 p.m. CJ and I will either be together or one of us will be here breaking down the Suns news, topics, regardless. This week we kind of talked some USA, talk some lineups and bringing that over. But next week and as the weeks change, we'll definitely do some more stuff and additive stuff. Also, if there's any guests, anybody that you guys would like to see, drop down in the comment section who you guys would like, and we can kind of get into contacts and maybe see if we can get some of those people. Now, I know some of those, more prolific people might be a little bit harder to reach with us only having, 1,000 subscribers. But if there's some people or other collaborations on YouTube or other creators that make Suns content that you guys enjoy that think we could, get along with or just ultimately just have a good time with and something that you enjoy, let us know in the comment section. Let us know how you guys feel. We can definitely get that going for you guys. Once again, from your hosts, Bruce Velez and CJ Pierre, we thank you guys so much for tuning into this episode and this first live stream here. And like I said, they will not be going away. So if you want to make sure to stay up to date and stay everything Phoenix Suns, hit that like button.